Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee for February 22nd, 2021. We'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. We'll start off with temporary resolution 31-21 coming through service. It's a resolution for the purchase of a new garbage truck. Mrs. Tina.
Yes, Bill's getting his last truck.
And he's getting ready to leave.
Today's it. This is his last day. Where is he? Or Molly, either one.
There you go. This is our yearly, this time it's a front load truck. You know, we kind of keep our trucks about every 7 years. The reason I'm asking for suspension of readings is that starting in March, there's a 4.5% increase in steel. And two of the companies already bid the 4.5% increase. The third company, which is New Way, we have two of their front loads already, is willing to hold this price if I can get this passed and get it ordered by the first of the month. It's $249,789.67. The other one was $267 and one was $270. They already figured in the 4.5%. That's why there's such a big difference in the price.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Bill while he's at the podium?
No.
All right, thank you,
And
Bill.
we'll be suspending.
And I have Mrs. Bobbitt as your second?
Yes.
Great. Okay, moving on to temporary resolution 32-21. This is a resolution coming through Public Works. It's a resolution to allow the City Transit Department to apply for the Meals on Wheels grant. This is an annual piece, I believe. Mr. Schoonover.
You are correct. This is an annual piece, and then 3321 with their grant opportunities are annuals as well. Since Miss Woody is here, I'll have her come up if it's okay to do it now to go over these real quick.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. So as you already mentioned, these are annual pieces. Temporary resolution 3221 is just allowing us to apply for the Meals on Wheels Older Adult Alternatives Grant. We apply for this every year. It ends up being part of our local match, and we typically get anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000 every year from that grant application.
Okay.
And for temporary resolution 3321, again, this is just allowing us to apply for grant funding through ODOT for all of our state and federal grants. So as you see listed in the legislation itself, it includes our 5311 operating assistance, 5339 capital, 5339B capital, the Ohio Transit Partnership Program, and any other grants that become available through ODOT, whether they be state or federal grants.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding 32-21 and 33-21? Okay, 3 readings.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have Mr. James as your second on 32-21 and me as your second on 33-21.
Yes, please.
All right. Next resolution is 34-21, coming through water pollution control. Denise sent out an email earlier today on this resolution, and it's for the construction of the lateral D Phase 1 trunk sewer.
I'm going to yield some time to Ms. Denise Cruz to explain this in a little more detail. This is actually a pretty exciting deal to give us access to the new property for the Parks Department, et cetera. So, Denise, you're all set.
Yes, so this is a part of a longer trunk sewer that's going to go all the way down through Rockville Corporate Park. But the first section we need to get constructed this year because we need to have our sewer line in before the park can start doing any development on their property. We also have an annexation agreement that says we'll provide sewer service to the Craner property. So this will accomplish that. And finally, the Port Authority would like to develop the end of Mill Park Drive in what's Rock Mill North. So this will provide sewer service for that property.
Denise, the question I would have is 3 readings too much? Will it give you enough time to get this started, or?
we're still undergoing design. We've got some wetland issues we need to work out, and we haven't got our PTI from Ohio EPA, so 3 readings is fine.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Denise on 34-21? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Denise. Mr. James, I have Mrs. Teener as your second for this one.
That's correct.
All right. Moving on, temporary resolution 35-21. This is a resolution that pertains to the 100 Trees Please project coming through service. Mrs. Teener.
And I'll have Mike Tharp come up and speak from the Parks Department.
Good evening. 100 Trees Please. This is a project started early January of this year. One we didn't foresee we were going to do in 2020, so kind of an off the cuff. Our goal was to plant 100 trees in Rising Park. In my 5 years, we've taken more than 182 trees out of that park, at least stumps that have died over the years. So a way to replace these trees was 100 Trees Please project. To date, in 6 weeks, we've sold 162. Phenomenal community interest. It came from Florida, Wisconsin, West Virginia, all over the eastern part of the United States. We've had calls and people buying trees to put in Rising Park. It tells you the connection that the community has with this park, our community, and really just a lot of people outside of this community. So project I thought would take 11 months to maybe get 100 trees has just went crazy in 6 weeks. So our goal is to take this money and buy trees, and we're going to do more than just plant trees in Rising Park. We're actually going to start the first arboretum inside the city limits. So this will be a full-fledged certified arboretum by the time we get done.
Okay. Mr. James.
Do you have room for some more trees or not?
We're not going to stop right now. Our goal might be around 175 now, and I'm not going to say we're going to quit even when we hit that. So right now there's 2 other articles that haven't been released yet that will be in magazines coming, and we expect that will probably blow up the phone lines again. So we're going to hang on and keep going.
I want mine.
That's an advertisement.
Before it's too late.
You're up to 144 today.
162 when I left the office.
Oh, that, between the time I was at 144 today?
Lancaster Greenhouse put it out on their website on Friday,
Friday.
and it just went, it exploded. So, yep, 162.
That's great.
Okay. Great
It's a
program.
great thing.
It is. It's neat to see the connection our community has to that park.
Any other questions for Mr. Tharp? Okay, I'm showing 1 reading,
1 reading. Yep.
and Mrs. Bobbitt is the second. All right, thank you. Oh, you're still up there.
He's got
Yes.
a couple more.
He's got a couple more. 36-21, this is, Becky, I'll just let you take this one. Mrs. Teener.
Yes, we owe taxes, pretty much. So
Yeah,
I'll let you go ahead and
We
explain.
took the Bowers property out of agricultural and brought it into what they call CAUV, into a park or into public use, and there's a penalty that is incurred with that. I thought I had enough in the budget to cover that. I didn't. So it was an $8,026 bill. I still need, I think, $6,200 to cover the rest of that, so.
Is 3 enough, or does it need to, is
it can
3
be-
enough?
Yeah, 3's enough, yeah.
Okay.
That's-
Okay? Any questions on this resolution? Pretty straightforward. And I have Mr. Matlin as your second?
Yes.
Okay. The next one is 37-21. This deals with the health and fitness coordinator position. Mrs. Teener.
Yes, was the, what we had tabled last year to hire during COVID. We tabled this, and so we're going to go ahead and hire the same person, correct?
Yeah, with the thought process moving forward, we didn't think we had the funds at the end of 2020 to even think about this, but turns out we do. And then with the thought of opening the pools this summer, we need an adult in place to actually facilitate some of the guidelines that we're moving forward with. So our health and fitness coordinator, really busy, usually in the winter months. It slacks off a bit in the summer. The perfect person to kind of slide over into that manager slash assistant manager of the pools. So this will be an aquatics coordinator for our pools in the summer, kind of her down months, I guess you want to call it that. Yeah, somebody we trust, somebody we've worked with in the past for, I think she's been on board for 3 years now as part-time. It's just the best fit for us moving forward.
So she'll be doing 2 jobs instead of just the fitness coordinator, so.
Actually, 3,
she's
we're gonna remove 2 of
That's
the pool
true.
positions, the manager and the assistant manager, and a couple of those with her present position now, which is health and fitness coordinator. So she'll be health, fitness, and aquatics coordinator.
So she'll be doing multiple jobs, so, yes, and we'd like to suspend on this. We were gonna do 3 readings, and I asked, since we'd already had her ready for last year, we just go ahead and suspend on it and she can get going.
Okay, and I also thought there were 2 additional seasonal part-time positions as part of the resolution.
No, those are the 2 positions we're actually deleting.
Okay, all right. Yes, Mr. Uhl, President Uhl.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Tharp said the magic phrase, open the pools. I asked Mr. Tharp to come and give us an update next council meeting to talk a little bit about the plans for the summer, whether it be pools or Friday night bandstand, whatever's just going on. And so we'll look forward to having you with us at the next meeting, if you can, to provide that update.
I'll be here. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions on 37-21? And I have Mrs. Bobbitt as your second on
Yes.
this one. Okay, thank you. Temporary Resolution 38-21, this is a resolution for completing a filter replacement at the North Water Treatment Plant coming through Water Pollution Control, Mr. James.
Yes, I would like to yield some time to Superintendent Nixon. The Memorial Drive Water Treatment Plant has 6 filter beds, 2 of which are out of service right now. And they're gonna do their best to try and get at least 1 back in service, and I'm gonna yield time, as I said, to Mike to explain that a little bit better.
You did a fine job, Chairman, thank you. The Miller Park Water Plant and the filters have been giving us some problems for a little while. We've had the 1 filter number 2 out, and then at the end of last year, filter 5 also failed, and now we're a little worried about filter 6. So we've been trying to limp along with that plant because of the potential of a new Miller Park water plant, but at the same time, I don't want to put ourselves at risk for not being able to produce enough water. So this particular resolution will allow for Pelton Environmental, their sole source provider of the Roberts Infinity underdrain system, which is different than the current underdrain system that we have in now. They've actually done one of these for us about 20 years ago. And this price would include purchasing the Infinity underdrain system. It also has money in there, about $50,000 to demo the existing underdrain system out of that filter. And then it'll also allow for rebuilding the filter with the Infinity, and that work will be done by Downing Construction out of Baltimore. They have worked with Pelton, and Pelton is the one who selected them because they're familiar with how to do the demo and how to do the new install. And then we'll also be utilizing mobile power wash that we've always used to place the new sand and gravel back into the filter. This is a worst-case scenario. It's a very conservative estimate. I think we'll be okay with this. What I've asked Mike Wickham, the plant manager, to do is look at an alternative way of fixing these. They actually make I'm going to call it an insert for the current filter bottoms that we have. And if that will work, he's called, Roberts also sells that product, and we're just learning about it. He's called Roberts, they're gonna come down and evaluate the underdrain system on filter 2 and see if those will in fact work. If they will, like I say, it'll save about $48,000 in demo of the filters. And what I'm hoping is, if those will work, we can get filter number 5 backed out, and it'll work in that. Maybe for this amount of money, I can get 2 filters rebuilt instead of 1. So again, this will allow us to move forward with worst case. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks, once we give them the approval to get the material in. We want to make sure we get on downing schedule, so that's why I've asked for suspension tonight. So it's our anticipation that Pelton will be in this week to tell us whether or not the inserts will or will not work on the wheel grader bottoms that we have now. If they don't work, then move forward with putting the Infinity bottoms and getting those ordered so that they can get here and again get on downing construction's schedule as well as Molten Power Wash's schedule. So I apologize for the quickness. Again, we're trying to milk that plant right now, but in case our economic development opportunity doesn't pan out, we don't want to totally ignore that plant either and have it not functional. So this is important, particularly this summer when we do the concentrate line cleaning. We'll have the south plant down for a period of time. So we're on trying to make all this work and not have any problem with producing the amount of water we need to produce.
Okay. Mr. James, anything else?
Nothing else.
Mr. Stoughton?
So what's the life of the replacement or the repair?
The life is typically 20+ years.
So you're darned if you do and darned if you don't, am I right?
Exactly. That's why I wanted Mike to look at, before, as he was putting prices together, there wasn't a lot of knowledge that we may be replacing that facility. So he just went with the Infinity bottom. We're both understanding that both will last 20 years, but if this can be done cheaper, let's go that route.
Sure.
So that's why he's scurrying right now, trying to get them to come in. But you're right, we're darned if we do and darned if we don't.
Yep.
Right now, and we're walking a very delicate plank, trying to make things work and figure out where we're going from here. And hopefully we know better later this next month that that economic development opportunity is going to occur, and then we'll know for sure that that plant will be replaced with that.
And would that change your tech?
Was that, I'm sorry?
If that were to pan out, would that change what you do?
No, because we'll still have a couple of years to
Okay.
get by. We're gonna have 2 to 3 years before a new plant would be functional, so.
So it's kind of immaterial how that plays out.
Right.
You've got to fix it. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. You
Yep.
saw where I was going with this, but thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, any other questions? All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. I have it as one reading then, and Mrs. Teener is your second.
That's correct.
Okay. Do I have any other resolutions to come before finance this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll jump into departmental updates. Do we have any departmental updates tonight?
Good evening. Figured I'd come in and give you guys a winter update on where we stand right now. Been a pretty tough 4 months since November, end of November. Basically, the end of last year, because we group everything from January to December, so from November and December last year, we used about 1,215 tons of salt, and overall cost was about 102,000 for that. Coming into January, February, we used 1,870 tons of salt to date. So those together come up to about 3,100 ton. We started out with about 2,100 ton in the barn, and that was after we took out of that salt that we sent to Sugar Grove. And we had roughly 800 in Sugar Grove, and I contracted for 660. So all that being said, that was about 3,560 ton. Where we stand right now, I got about 475 ton in the barn and 125 ton to come in the pipeline. So, and I've also got a request into Cargill for an additional amount of salt, but that will be outside contract, and we'll see what that price is once they, if they send me a quote. There's no guarantee they'll even send me a quote, so. But roughly between 500 and 600 ton in the barn right now. We, hopefully the old man upstairs turned off the faucet, and we'll be good going through the rest of the year. I will say that I will be back in front of council sometime this summer, for an additional appropriation for salt, so we can fill the barn going into winter next year. So, but it's been hard on equipment too. I've spent about 32% of my budget, in maintenance, just keeping trucks on the road. So, you know, it's been one of our more trying winters. So hopefully that answers any questions that people had on, I know there was some rumors out there on we were gonna run out of salt, and, you know, and this and that, but I don't believe that's gonna be the case. So,
Greg, do you have an estimate or a total of like hours worked? Because I know they've been out plowing and.
well, yeah, I can get you that. I just had everything broke down, basically. Let me do it this way. Since January 1, I've spent $360,000 in snow and ice. That's about $106,000 in labor, about $100,000 in equipment, and the rest is in salt. So I can get you hours. I just broke it down.
That's okay,
to
it was an
the
off the
totals.
wall question, so,
Yeah. So, yeah.
okay. Any questions for Greg? Melody?
Mine's not really a question.
Okay.
I've had no complaints. I've even had people call me and say they're doing a heck of a job.
I wished I had your phone.
I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
We've had some complaints. We've taken off some mailboxes. Knock on wood, we've not taken off any mirrors or sideswiped any cars yet this year. So,
Well,
I've got some newer guys out there, and they're coming along very well. So, but we appreciate it,
we've had a lot of snow.
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes, we have. Mr. Matlock?
Where's that salt come from? Is it up by Cleveland, or are you getting it from out of state?
Our salt, this year, the salt comes out of Cargill, which is Cleveland salt mine. So,
So I do have one other question.
Yes, Mrs.
You
Ball.
said that you were going to go, you're getting a bid directly from Cargill.
yes.
Why are we not going off the state of Ohio's? Have we,
I've already maxed that
you've
out.
maxed that one?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I mean, you gotta look back into the late 90s to find where we've used more than what we've used so far this year.
Okay.
So it's been a long time since we've used this much salt. And then coming down here, I forgot to throw the brine numbers out there, but I know, because we run brine on every truck along with the grain yard. So between pre-treats and pre-wets, we're probably about 180,000 gallons of brine made this year on top of that.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other departmental updates?
I have one. So if I could call Bill up here, that'd be help. I just thought, I know we got an ordinance later, but, you know, when Bill comes up here, I appreciate that. I've been a co-worker with him for a long time. He's never been able to have a position without me being his boss. Well, he is starting tomorrow. And what, you know, the shirt, the guys made him this shirt, and I know it's very simple. A lot of people don't understand or appreciate it. I mean, It's like if you come at the last minute, it almost sounds like a parent, come at the last minute, can I go do this? And Bill's answer always was a standard, no. And all the guys signed it on a shirt, and I've always been interested in who signed, how, where, and whatever. But anyway, we appreciate you, Bill, so much, 40-plus years. He actually started in the Parks Department, working seasonal, kind of part-time through the summers, but that's when he was a teenager, when they allowed you to work before 16. And he really loved it there, looked forward to a full-time job. It just, at that time, back in the 80s, just wasn't possible in the Parks Department. But sanitation offered him a job, and he was up there. And he was already here, well in place at the transfer station when I came here in '97, and got an opportunity to bring him in as assistant superintendent. And really, he's done a good job the last 5 years. He's made that department better. He's brought in not only the toter program throughout the city, some of that change will be reflected in your ordinance that we'll be addressing later, but also the compost facility. I'm really proud of what he's done there and being able to divert a lot of compost, yard waste, and get it over there. It's been very successful, and we appreciate that. And thank you so much, Bill, for your years of service.
Linda?
Wow, those are two tough acts to follow. Just thank you for your service. From the newer class of the staff, of the city staff, the Community Development Department, this past week was my 1-year anniversary on the job. So, yeah, yeah, I don't know this job outside of a pandemic, so I'm looking forward to, I'm looking forward to that. But more good news for our department. We applied for and have been awarded an AmeriCorps Vista member. So if you're familiar with the AmeriCorps program, it's a national program. Think of it like a domestic Peace Corps. It's been around since the early 90s. And we applied for getting a full-time member. So this is a full-time position, someone to work in our department. The VISTA program is to build capacity. So this is not someone to do the actual work of a program, but to help us build systems and do all the vaccines, things that we need. And we're going to start recruiting for this program, so look for in your email boxes. We'd like to hire someone from Lancaster. Folks sign up for AmeriCorps from all over the country, and they can be placed in any part of the country. If you know anyone that's interested in the program, let them know, because you can apply for positions all over the country. They receive a monthly stipend of about $1,000, and it is full-time. It is for a year. They're very well supported. They get a lot of training, professional development, and an education stipend of about $6,000. It's for anyone of any age. And like I said, we'll be recruiting, and they'll start in June.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Any questions for Linda? All right,
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other departmental updates? Okay, seeing none, I will turn the floor over to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. We do have one ordinance this evening, dealing with waste removal, as was referenced just a moment ago. Temporary ordinance 8-21 coming through service. Ms. Keener.
Yes, Bill, like to come back up, or Molly, either one. These are changes to the ordinance for sanitation pickup for holidays, and that we're just removing some items.
Well, 4 or 5 years ago, when we wrote this ordinance to meet with our toters and stuff, these might have needed to be in place. One of them is the tagging people and giving warnings. That needs to go away. It's more of a pain in the butt than it is. With our community being 60% rental, we track by addresses, not by people's names, and people go in and they change, Brother Joe's taking over the utility bill, and the same people are living there, but because the utility bill is somebody's name, now they want their 3 warning. And we don't get a lot, but when we get, the ones that Paul and I have had to deal with, they're habitual. I mean, it's just, and we've had this program in place for over 3 years now. So everybody knows if you put extra trash out, you gotta pay for it. So this needs to come out of, you know, in my opinion, this needs to come out of the ordinance. Number 2 is the holiday ordinance. We're not gonna change what we're doing at the sanitation department. People who call us and complain about this ordinance aren't people that are being charged for picking up an extra 2 or 3 bags outside the toter during a holiday week. The people that's calling and complaining, the most complaints we get, and Paul has gotten, is the people that save up their furniture and put out 4 or 5 yards of trash for a holiday, and then when they get the bill, you know, we try to explain to them, it's in the ordinance, a yard or less. A lot of people, Jack Matlin dealt with this one. She had more than a yard of trash. I charged her. She called me. I sympathized with her, so I refunded her money. And then she went to Mr. Matlin because she thinks we ought to have free pickup the week before, the week of, and the week after a holiday. Now, the sanitation department isn't going to run out and start charging everybody for every little thing they set out. I think we've proven that. But this is another ordinance that, within the whole ordinance, it's a pain in the butt. I think that the warning system, they just need to charge for it. Holidays are gonna stay the same. Do you think the sanitation department, even if I'm gone, is gonna run around and take pictures at Christmas time as busy as they are of every little thing that's set out? No. We're gonna, you know, I've been told they're gonna stick to what we've set in place. I don't know how, other than Mr. Matlin, how many other councilmen have gotten complaints about it. I hear more about us not charging for 2 or 3 bags sitting out from council people than I do about from the residents. And we're talking about a select few residents, so if we just do away with this out of the ordinance, I think it's gonna clear a lot of things up. The third one is the minimum charge at the transfer station. I wanna go from $20 to $25. That would still make us the cheapest place to dump within a 500-mile radius. And that's not a joke. Most places charge a minimum 1 ton as our minimum. We're talking about looking into, Paul and I have had several conversations, Bob, about us starting to take credit cards. Well, with credit cards, there comes a fee. Debit cards, there's a fee. So this $25, if we get all this in place this year, it would help us recover the fees for the credit cards instead of telling somebody you owe us $1.50 for a credit card, $2, whatever. We don't know what the fee would be yet, but it's been, some of the places I've looked into, it went anywhere from $1.50 to $4.50, depending on how much customers you have during the month. So those are the 3 things in that ordinance that I would like to see changed. I had every intention of changing them before I decided to retire, so I'm moving ahead with them.
Okay.
Oh, it's me. I was thinking it was you. That's funny. Hey, it's me. Who's got questions? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mallon.
Bill, for the people that don't know, could you go over the process if somebody sets out too much trash, where they take pictures and?
Okay, yes. Anybody that receives a charge on the utility bill, we have a picture on file that stays there permanently. So if somebody calls you and says, you know, every guy that gets out of the truck, we have iPads on every truck now. Whoever thought we'd have iPads on garbage trucks, what we do. We go through the cartograph system. If it's a lot of trash over the limit, the men get out, one of the driver will get out, take a picture, sends a picture into my office. Molly or I or Tramp will put a price on the picture. And then we send it down to the city utility office and they put it on their utility bill. But I want to stress that anybody calls you and says, I set 1 bag out and they charge me money, I'd be happy, because this happened with Mr. Martin, I'll be happy to send you the picture of the trash we picked up. We don't even bother with camera for 1 bag. I mean, I'm just being honest.
So I'll let you know, we do get a picture with the house in the background, some portion of the house, not just trying to capture the mailbox with a number. And it's been very effective when I get somebody that is not happy with their response and come to my office. It's been very effective.
But I think in the 3 years that we've done this, we've had to, because we made a mistake, 3 times?
Very seldom.
Okay,
I mean,
I
maybe a
think
couple
3
times a
times
year.
where we actually made a mistake, we did an investigation, and we had to refund the money. There has people like the lady that I felt sorry for from Jack's ward, that I just arbitrarily gave back her money because I saw her point of view, and then she still went after me anyway.
So like if we have something in the alley and we're looking at one house and there might be a duplex, one on the top, one on the bottom, we might give that charge to the wrong one. We will change it and put it over to the other one if there's we try to work through that. And another great thing, just remember, it's a tremendous deal. We haven't raised the rates since 2003. We're hopefully gonna crack 20 years, but for $3 more a month, you can get a second toter. That is really a great steal. And we've seen a lot of people take advantage of
Since
it.
COVID started, we've given over 100 second. I mean, it's safe to say over 100 people have contacted us and taken the second toter. The program is working. It will continue to work. It's just that not everybody is as honest.
Bill, I think it has worked. I think our city is cleaner. Many of you on council remember those days. Things are much better now.
Drive down
Some
the
of
alleys. I
Well,
encourage
some
it.
streets were even terrible, and so it's been a great thing.
But 3 readings would be fine.
So the force and effect of this is that we're just not gonna tag people anymore, they're just gonna get charged. Is that what you're saying?
That's it.
So you do what you're not supposed to do relative to what the ordinance says, you're gonna get charged. Do you have, okay, I'm good with that. And, you had real specificity, regarding the $20 to $25. I mean, that's a
It's a
percentage.
yard or less, it's $10.
Right, I got you. But the $20 to $25 transfer fee jump is, I mean, that's significant from a percentage standpoint. And so it is true, within 500 miles, we're not dumping trash any cheaper.
Nope. We are.
Right, but I mean, a resident can't.
Resident can't go anywhere.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of people that I think are coming down from Columbus to avoid this Waco. Newark, which is in our solid waste district, they have they built a transfer station up there. They have a $55 minimum.
Okay.
The landfill is $69 in Pine Grove. Tunnel Hill is $65. That's the minimum charge. You walk in there with 1 bag, there it is. We'll pick it up at your house for $25.
Okay. Other questions for Bill in his last appearance here before us? Yes, Ms. Bobbitt.
No question, but you've done a bang-up job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I echo Ms. Bobbitt's sentiments. Thank you for your service and your work. And so if there's nothing more, we'll look at 3 readings on this. And we have Mr. Matlin as the second. Okay. With that, I will toss it back to the chairwoman.
All right, thank you, President Wool. Are there any other items for finance this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
All those in favor? Aye, we are adjourned.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:45.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
Swing into the Carriage Company and check out our sweet deals.
If you're looking for the best selection of clean, quality used vehicles, look no further than the Carriage Company. You'll feel secure with your purchase, knowing all vehicles undergo an extensive safety and service check prior to the sale. And all vehicles can be viewed online at carriagecompany.com. The Carriage Company, located at 1031 North Memorial Drive in Lancaster.
So wait!
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for this day and your blessings. Once again, we come before you and ask that you would lead, guide, and direct us as we go about the work that is set before us. Today, on George Washington's birthday, let us remember and consider the values that he lived his life by and apply them to our own life of morality and honesty and good character. May you help us in all that we endeavor to do to ensure that Lancaster is a great place to live, work, worship, play, and raise a family. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Here.
Mrs. Downhour?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Matlin?
Here.
Mr. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
Mr. Stoughton?
Here.
And Mrs. Teener?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance. Let me just briefly make a comment as we begin the meeting tonight. There was some sort of hubbub I heard online perhaps regarding city council members not wearing masks during the meeting. Let me be clear. While the meeting is going on, city council members are socially distanced from one another. Anytime that we are not, when we go to speak to one another or when we get up to leave, go speak to someone in the gallery, etc., we do have masks on. Because we're in the midst of a broadcast, there is an exception in the rule that allows us to not wear masks during this meeting. And so for anyone who is concerned, thank you for your concern for our health and safety, but indeed we are following all of the protocols that are in place by the governor at this time. With that, we'll move forward and ask the clerk read and dispose of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated February 8th, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any reports of city officials?
There are email dated February 9th, 2021 regarding Public Works agenda submitted by Mr. Schoonover. Email dated February 16th, 2021 regarding temporary ordinance 4-21 and 5-21 submitted by Pete Vale, Building Department Administrator. Email dated February 21st, 2021 regarding finance agenda and letter of resignation submitted by Mrs. Downhour. And finally, an email dated February 22nd, 2021 regarding finance agenda and letter of resignation submitted by President Ohl.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are none to be presented, excuse me.
Tonight, I've asked the director of the Lancaster Festival, Deb Connell, to come and give us an update on whatever she can regarding where they're currently at in planning regarding the 2021 Lancaster Festival. So, Ms. Connell, thank you for being here. Please feel free to come on up. Once you get up to the podium, you can remove your mask if you like, and feel free to update us.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me tonight. It's good to share some good news, isn't it? It's definitely been an interesting year for the festival. As most of you know, the 2020 festival was to be my second in the lead of the festival as executive director. I never expected to have to cancel the whole thing. My biggest fear going forward into 2020 was that I would have to cancel a concert because of weather. Never expected a global pandemic. But we have done some amazing things in this year off. People ask me quite often, what do you do when the festival's not going on? Why is this a full-time job? It's a full-time plus job. We do a lot of work in the off-season. It takes an entire year to put a festival together. So after the festival closes at the end of July, beginning of August, we account for the festival. We make sure all of our numbers are matching up with everything that they should. And then we start the process of building the next one. We start approaching artists to see if they're interested. We start evaluating what we could do better. Having a year off gave us a chance to do some things that we knew we really needed to do, but have never had the time to do. So in 2020, we did a massive technology upgrade. When I took my position from Ken Culver, who was the director before me, he handed over a 14-year-old computer. We were running on systems that were no longer supported by Windows or anybody else, so our office this year got a major technology upgrade. We got all new computers and we installed our own server in the office, which is wonderful for me. If anybody has been out to the OUL site, you may have recently seen all the activity out there. We were able to convince a company to be very kind to us and donate all the labor to put in a new concrete pad. The pad that we build the stage structure on had been there for 28 years. It was in horrible disrepair. It held water. It needed some drains. It needed a little bit of leveling. So we have a brand new concrete pad out there. And I was able to secure a grant from the state of Ohio, and I've applied for an additional grant from the Fairfield County Foundation for a new stage. I know this is something that nobody ever really sees because you see the artist on the stage, you don't see what's underneath that artist. But we have been building that stage out of wood on top of scaffolds that are held up by jacks so that we can level it for the entire history of the festival. The problem with that is twofold. It's all made out of wood. We're an outside event there, so anytime it rains, anytime we have high humidity, a third to a half of all that wood has to be replaced every year. As far as labor, it was taking a crew of 8 to 10, 12 hours a day for 5 or 6 days to build the stage every year. Our new stage system is composed of aluminum panels, very easy to move and tuck away into our barn. It will now take our stage crew 8 hours or less to put it together. So there's a huge labor savings for us in the coming years. I am happy to announce that we are moving forward with plans to have a 2021 Lancaster Festival. Feels really good to say that. As long as everything holds the course. Where we are in the process right now is I have completed all of the documentation. I'm ready to send it to the state of Ohio, the health department, for the waiver for attendance. We're hoping that that gets approved. Of course, the whole festival will be hinging on whether we get the approval for more to be in attendance. Right now, the restrictions on attendance for an event is 1,500 people. That includes every worker, every artist, all of our volunteers, which would take about 400 people out of that 1,500 and leave 900 spaces for the public to actually attend the concerts. So we're hoping to get this waiver. I've applied for a max capacity of 5,000 people. We can show the state that we have ample room for social distancing. We have decreased the number of tables that we have almost by half in order to make those tables 6 foot apart. So that will be coming up soon. I'll let everybody know as soon as we get that waiver. I'm pretty confident in it, though. Everybody that I've spoken with and they've reviewed the application said it hits all of the marks for what they're looking for. We have a full set of guidelines for 2021. If anybody wants them, you can contact my office, and I'm happy to email them to whoever would like to have them. It includes all of the guidelines for our volunteers and staff, as well as our artists coming into town. Everything from security to restaurant cleaning detail. Before Mr. Burrows left, I was going to say the Lancaster Festival is just about the only one he didn't say no to. He was always very good about, I would call him up and, say, because even when Ken was still the director, it's one of the areas that he put me in charge of for a few years before I took over, was getting all of those little infrastructure things in place. And I would call him up and say, hey, Bill, it's festival time again. And he'd say, okay, what do you need? So it was always a very nice conversation. We are going forward with the acts that we had booked for the 2020 season. We've re-engaged with them They both just recently reached out to me and wanted a copy of our guidelines on how we were keeping everybody safe so that their management can take a look at it and make sure that it fulfills everything that the artists are concerned about. When we wrote the guidelines, we formed a committee from everybody that we could think of that would have a great point of view, something that we should consider when putting an event together, from the health department and EMA and the hospital. And I mean, we put this together. We took all of the information and we really focused on what's it going to take to make the artists that we bring into our community feel safe to be in our community. So I don't feel like we're going to have any problems with the artists being happy with what we've put together for them. You can stop me anytime. I know I start rambling, so you can put a hand up and stop me anytime. I'm happy to take questions. So the waiver to the state. One of our future plans that we're focusing on before the festival actually gets started is we have sort of a new fundraising attitude. Most of you may not know that the festival has always budgeted for the following year based on how the previous year did. Obviously, I cannot budget on what 2020 did for 2021. So we've really taken a look at that in the off season. We're working towards being able to budget 3 years out. That gives us the opportunity to budget for those artists earlier. So if we have a specific artist we know we would really like to bring in, we can work on that budget before that year even hits, and we can know what we'll be able to offer them. So that's very important too. The other thing is, I don't know whether any of you have ever had a chance to see the economic impact study that we had done based on the 2018 season. If you haven't had a chance to see that, I would love to send you a copy of it. We had a company called Silverload that took care of doing that study for us. One of the first things, people would ask me when I came into the position, what's so special about the festival and why would I want to support the festival? And I didn't really have all of the full answers for that. So I asked the board to approve this study. And the study really showed both the community pride aspect of what the festival does for Lancaster and Fairfield County, and the monetary value that it holds. I'm sure you can ask any business around here if their business was affected by the festival being canceled this year, not just the pandemic, and I can absolutely tell you that it was. The study did all the numbers for us, and in 2018 we brought in $3.5 million in revenue to the city of Lancaster and $8.9 million statewide in taxes, in payroll, and when people are coming to Lancaster, they're not just coming to the festival, they're coming to every part of the community. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the upcoming festival, about what we did in 2020. I had a lot of Zoom meetings.
I know. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Becky.
So you said are you allowed to tell who's coming yet, or?
I can share two of them if you like. The first Saturday night is the band Perry, country music group of the year in 2011 or 2012. The Wednesday night act is an Elton John tribute band, and his name is Elton Ron. He's coming out of Canada. Hopefully, if we can get him through the border of Canada and back up there. He is fabulous. One of the other things that we did in 2020 to keep people engaged with art and music is we put on virtual concerts. I don't know if you got to see any of them or, have a little party in your own living room with some of the things that we did. We also have done now 2 weeks of virtual art classes for children with Carla Young. Those all worked out great. We're planning another one probably somewhere around Easter to do those. But Elton Ron in Canada did a virtual concert for us at no charge. That's how much he wanted to be a part of the festival this year. So we were very thankful to him for that. And he does a great job. You would never know that he wasn't Elton John. Anybody else have questions?
Very good. Other questions? Yes, Mr. Mallon.
What's the status of the art walk, the Friday night?
I have spoken to Amanda and Colin. The art walk is a collaborative effort between Destination Downtown and the Lancaster Festival. So we do it together. We both do different parts of it. There will be an art walk as far as we can plan right now. What we're looking at is sort of an art walk light. We're going to try to encourage everybody to come and see all of the art exhibits throughout the week, not just art walk night. We're going to remove the places at art walk that create the largest gatherings. For instance, for my part of it, instead of putting a band on the stage, we're going to put several smaller bands or entertainers in different spots all over downtown. So that way we have 8 or 10 small groups rather than one giant group in front of the stage. We're just trying to, keep numbers down, give everybody enough space that they can still be socially distanced.
Very good. Other questions? Well, Deb, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bob Wolfinger. That's an excellent point. One of the things that we've changed, or two of the things that we've changed actually, the schedule for the festival will look different this year. It's not 10 days. We've shortened it down to 8 days. We're going Saturday to Saturday plus art walk the night before. And we've moved all of our concerts that we are going to do to outdoor venues. Instead of the 3 concerts that we normally do at Ohio University Lancaster, we're going to do 6 there. So I'll expect to see every one of you up there at one of the concerts.
Well, thank you, Deb. Thank you for being here. Let me just say, and I'm sure this is not a surprise to those who know me and are my friends or colleagues. I love the Lancaster Festival and love the things that the festival stands for, and the economic impact that you talked about is so significant in our community. The community pride and the sense of community that the festival creates. I remember my grandparents lived on the east side, and so when I was a kid, I'd spend a lot of time over there, and it'd be on a weekend, Saturday night, end of July, and I'd hear fireworks. And as a kid, I had no idea what was going on, and my grandma would say, oh, well, it must be the festival. And so since we returned to Lancaster, when my family and I came back here after college, my kids have never missed a Lancaster festival that you've had. Obviously, last year doesn't count, and so
Last year does not count.
no. Ethan attended in the womb. In fact, I remember Lou Ross thinking that perhaps Perla was going to go in labor at the concert that year. We had to take her up to the little medical place you had, and she was not feeling well. And Lou was like, "Can I help you to the car?" He wanted her out of there just as fast.
But
as
she
he could.
didn't miss the festival.
No,
That's
she
the
didn't
great
know,
part of it.
and
Yeah.
neither did Ethan. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. This year the festival is going to be, I think, extra special. if
It
we're
will
able
be
to move
extra
forward.
special. We can't wait to all be together again. We have lots of things to celebrate, getting to see all of our friends and family again. But it's also the 35th anniversary of the Lancaster Festival Orchestra, which is pretty special too. That was created by Gary 35 years ago this year, hard to believe. Yeah, and I appreciate that story. The festival has always been a big part of my heart too. My first concert, I was 14, and my grandmother took me. We sat out on the hill and the little blanket that she kept in the back of her car. And honestly, to tell you the truth, when she said, "Hey, I want you to go to this concert with me," I said, "I don't want to go. I don't want to. That's like old people music. I don't want to go and listen to that." Well, I sat on that hill, and I didn't move, and I didn't go play with friends or hang out with anybody. I was completely enamored with what I saw, and I thought, if our little town can do this, it's something pretty special.
Yes, it is.
It
Yes,
is special.
Well, thank you for being here. Let's show
Thank you.
Deb our appreciation for all her work for being here tonight. Thank you so much. Very good. Are there any petitions or memorials this evening?
There are none to be presented.
During this time, Lancaster City Council sets time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers of Lancaster to address us on any item or issue you would like. If you'd like to address City Council, please come forward. Sign in on the green clipboard that you will find. There are 2 up there. Please use the green one on the podium. State your name and address for the record. Please note during this time, City Council will not respond to you, but may choose to do so at a later time during our meeting. In accordance with the rules of council, we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Is there anyone who'd like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? All right, we will move ahead. Are there reports of standing committees?
I have one, Finance Committee meeting minutes dated February 8th, 2021, submitted by Mrs. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second?
A motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there reports of special committees?
There are none to be presented.
Tonight, we have a public hearing on temporary ordinance 4-21. Let me quickly attempt to lay out the rules and procedures for our public hearing. In a moment, I'm going to ask that the clerk read the preamble for the ordinance that we are considering. After that, I will turn it over to the sponsor of the ordinance, that's Mr. Matlin, for any comments that he would like to give. Once he provides comments, we will move and open the floor to allow comments from those in attendance. I will first call for proponents to come. If you are in favor of this particular piece of legislation, then you can come forward, sign in on the silver clipboard, and state your name and address for the record, and you will be able then to proceed with your comments. After the proponents will come the opponents. Once we make it through that first round, we then will bring the proponents back up for any rebuttal. Please note that in order for you to speak the second time around as a proponent or opponent, you must have spoken the first time around as a proponent or opponent. So after the proponents go the second time, we will allow opponents another opportunity, and then we will turn it back to Mr. Matlin for any closing comments before we close the public hearing. With that, I hereby open this public hearing and ask that the clerk read the preamble.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance, Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code, Title III, Zoning and Property Restrictions, Chapter 1123, General Provisions, Chapter 1129, Residential Districts, Chapter 1133, Commercial Districts, Chapter 1151, Off-Street Parking and Off-Street Loading, and Chapter 1161, Definitions of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mr. Matlin.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matlin.
Thank you. I've gotten a couple emails in the last 2 weeks about this. There was seemed to be a little confusion that this ordinance change gives the tax abatement for building in the CRA 3 zone. That tax abatement was passed in 2019, I think, or something. So what we're doing now is just making it easier for properties to be developed in this district, which is mainly the center part of town. And the main part of this ordinance allows three residential unit buildings built where they were not allowed before, but it doesn't change the square footage requirements for the housing. Everything has to be by the Ohio Building Code. It doesn't change the requirements for parking, where each residential unit's going to need 2 parking units off-street. So it should not add to any parking issues you have in a neighborhood or density issues as far as how many people live there. So I'm not sure where we want to go. I know Mr. Vale's here from zoning, and the mayor handed out quite a bit of information earlier, and I knew everybody should have got an email with this. So most of this is just wording changes, adding the triplex, the 3 residential units to the code, as far as that goes. If anybody wants to, the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Matlin. We appreciate that opening comments. We'll now move to proponents of this particular piece of legislation. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of it? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, and I can assure you that President Uhl has already asked me to be brief. So I'll do my best, but I thought it might make sense to give a little historic perspective on how this came about, and it actually started way back in 2018, and stems from a shortage of housing that we have in Lancaster, especially affordable housing or workforce housing. And what I passed out to you, the very first page, is a map that comes from the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, and it has the arrow pointing to Fairfield County that shows they project we will have a shortage of 3,000 residential units in Fairfield County. That's a lot, and we know that that's the case. Pretty much every multifamily development in Lancaster is close to 100% occupancy, which is highly unusual. Many have a waiting list. So we need to do something to alleviate that. Back in 2018, early 2019, the federal government awarded the city 2 opportunity zones, the only 2 in Fairfield County, and that's Census Tract 317 and Census Tract 322. 317
is just west of downtown, and 322 is east and south of downtown. There's a census tract in the middle between those two, Census Tract 320, which basically encompasses downtown. So we had the lot at Main and Memorial Drive that's been sitting there for sale for many years. And Mr. Pettit, the Economic Development Director, and I had invited a number of developers down to take a look at that, to encourage development of residential, multifamily development on that site. And we were told that with the infrastructure that's there and the EPA limitations because of what it was before, that the numbers didn't work without some tax assistance, tax abatement for the real estate taxes. So we started looking into a CRA overlay for at least part of downtown, specifically to encourage development of that site. And to get a CRA approved, a new CRA, you have to file an application with the Ohio Development Department, and you have to do a housing survey to do that. So I took it upon myself to do that housing survey and quickly learned that we have some serious problems, not only in that area in Census Tract 320, but 317 and 322, which included the opportunity zones. So we quickly changed directions and decided that we needed some assistance to encourage residential development in all three of those census tracts. First, to take advantage of a CRA, and secondly, the opportunity zone that the federal government awarded us. Along with that, the Port Authority has developed a program we're calling Housing in the Middle. And the target is to be able to produce apartments that rent for $700, or in that neighborhood, $700 to $750, and that's based on a calculation of what somebody that makes $30,000 to $35,000 can afford. So there are a number of empty lots around the city that are abandoned. Some the city owns, a number of them the county land bank owns, that we can make use of. So we've developed this program, which has gotten some notoriety with MORPC and some other housing officials. And the last page of the handout, you will see this rough draft of a possible apartment building. So what this ordinance is doing, it is changing the zoning to allow 3-family units on what formerly were 2 40-foot lots. If right now you can have a 2-family unit on a 40-foot lot, but in order to take advantage of the CRA, you have to have at least a 3-unit apartment. That was done specifically to eliminate the possibility of somebody building a house or just a duplex and getting tax abatement on it, because we want to encourage larger development. So the idea is that we will have a turnkey operation for these buildings. We have a design, we have an architect that's going to do a design that looks approximately like this, with the amenities that are outlined here on the side. So we will be able to arrange for a builder, an architect, the zoning, everything, and be able to present the developer with a turnkey package that they can take and build this and rent these apartments for a reasonable amount of money to help satisfy our affordable housing needs. We've got the architect lined up, and all we need is the zoning change to allow these 3 units to be built on these lots. I'm going to let Law Director Olam and Zoning Director Vale talk about any of the technicalities that are involved with zoning if they think it's necessary. So with that, I know that probably wasn't as brief as President Uhl wanted.
Well, I think it was great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you wouldn't mind to just stay right there. One of the things I did fail to mention is different from our normal time is there is opportunity for council to engage, ask questions, and seek clarification on any items they would like during this time. And so before the mayor departs, I'll ask if anyone has questions for him. Ms. Bobbitt?
So on here, you know, it says 2 bedrooms, or, could there be 3 bedrooms?
The,
Are they 3?
yeah, the design that this,
I mean, a unit can be.
3
oh,
units, 3 units with 2 bedrooms.
Okay,
The design, that, if some developer wanted to make their own design and do it on their own, yes. but
could?
we're trying to make this as inexpensive as possible to stay in that $700 a month target range. So the standard unit that we're gonna be presenting has 2 bedrooms. That doesn't prevent anybody from doing their own thing and doing 3 bedrooms.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
This
Ms.
does actually lower the density in a residential area, because if you have 2 40-foot lots, you can build 2 double or 2 duplexes. The plan is to combine 2 40-foot lots and build a 3 unit. So it actually lowers the allowable density of housing in a residential area. But there's a lot of infill lots around that the land bank owns, or some the city owns, that sit there vacant, weedy, that we can do something very productive with them and return it to residential use.
Do you know the number of those lots? Is that vacant units, or is it lots are not included in that vacant units number that's on this paper?
The lots are not included.
They're
in
not
that.
included.
That was for the housing survey that I had to submit to the state.
And those are mostly apartment units then that are vacant, or?
In the published literature that we have to gather that information, it doesn't indicate whether they're single-family or multifamily.
Very good, thank you. Further questions for the mayor? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the information and the update. Are there other proponents who would like to speak in favor of this legislation this evening? Yes, Mr. Holland, sorry.
Oh, that's right.
I was looking at the crowd.
I just actually wanted to point out just a couple of things here. Council is usually used to seeing, I think, a lot of times or whatever, when we're doing some sort of ordinance repeal and replace, you know, it's one thing. And I think the only thing, what I wanted to point out was, you know, you're seeing through this packet, and the reason we put it all together is you can see how, you know, all those sections of Part 11 Planning and Zoning Code Title 3, how they interplay with one another. So in order to insert, if you will, the CRA overlay into this process and the triplex into this process, required, and I'm going to turn it over to Pete here in just a minute, because he and Assistant Law Director Stephanie Hall spent many hours, days, weeks in the minutia of this whole thing, and I wouldn't want to take that away from him, but I just wanted to point out, and so you can see, I mean, this is how these things, you know, just all the different parts of the code of our code, local code, that play upon each other, that we have to go in and look at and think about and actually pull together on something that seems, as the mayor described, pretty simple, but in essence, it's very, you know, can be very difficult or whatever. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, creating this document or changes to the code took quite a bit of time a lot of time looking at maps, aerial views, et cetera, looking down on the city and seeing how this is all gonna work. And we found that, I found that it would be most effective if we could target the RS4 district in the city. RS4 is residential, single-family, high density. These are our 40-foot wide lots, which represents the older parts of the city, both centrally, north central, and west. So keeping that in mind, that we're proposing to put 3-unit buildings into a single-family zone district, we needed to make an effort to make sure that we protect a single-family neighborhood as much as possible. So by requiring at least 2 lots in order to provide enough lot area, to provide enough parking, so we're not continuing to clog up streets with parking, get more parking off-street into the yards themselves. So, you know, and then it goes into, we obviously have single-family living that takes place not just in residential districts, but also commercial. the changes in the code help to protect and make sure that we have proper planning that's going to take place in those commercial districts, so that people are still going to have to go to, in some situations, people will still have to go to Board of Zoning Appeals for approval, provide a site plan, et cetera. And this is a way to help make sure that we are protecting those neighborhoods.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Vale. Does anyone have any questions for either Law Director Ullem or Mr. Vale? Ms. Bobbitt?
So Pete, over, let me think of the name of the street, I think it's, Mulberry. Or let's just use Square 13. If there's a lot in Square 13, can we put a 3 residential home up?
Provided it meets the requirements for lot area per unit, lot width, road frontage requirement, setbacks.
But as I understand the requirements, it would have to be 2 lots, 2 40-foot lots.
In order to get that in there, yeah, it's
Right.
gonna take 2 lots.
So if there was a lot, then the answer would be no. We could not plop one of these in the middle of Square 13.
No, you could not.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Ms. Bobbitt?
It does.
Other questions?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Hall.
Yeah, just real quickly, it looks like the biggest, the largest amount of land, and I'm not looking at a map that overlays the city wards, but it looks like the biggest chunk of land in the CRAs is in Ward 5, in an area that is not densely populated. Are there, with the CRA lands that are in that particular area, have there been any discussions, or are there any active talks to developers that might look at those pieces of land in the less densely populated parts of the city?
Not that I
could
know
be
of.
interesting targets for development.
Not that I know of. That would be probably more from economic development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Further questions for either Law Director Ullem or Mr. Vale? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other proponents that would like to speak in favor of this legislation this evening? If not, are there opponents, those who are opposed to this legislation who would like to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll move back to proponents. Either the mayor, Law Director Ullem, or Mr. Vale would have opportunity to provide final comments. No? If not, since no opponents spoke against, we have no opportunity for opponents to speak again in rebuttal. I'll turn it back to the sponsor for closing comments. Mr. Mallon.
I think it was all said pretty well. I appreciate the time from the mayor and Mr. Vale and the law director to come down and at least enlighten us on what we're trying to do here. And I think it's a positive step. I would hope that it works out well for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon. With that, we will close this public hearing and note that we are only on the second reading of this tonight, and it is for 3 readings. Is that right?
That is correct.
Very good. All right, then this public hearing is closed. We'll now move on to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the 3rd reading of temporary resolution 24-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor and the Community Development CHIP Home Program Fund 2083, offered by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 2421.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 24-21. Discussion, Mr. McDaniel.
We had some money left over from 2020 in this program, rehabbing home projects for community development, and they would like to carry that money over into 2021 and spend it this year if we have applicants for that program.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 24-21 passes 9-0. We now have second reading on Temporary Resolution 28-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the construction administration of the South Water Plant Concentrate Line Rehabilitation Project and authorize a then and now certificate offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Thank you, Chairman Hull. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution number 28-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of Temporary Resolution 28-21. Discussion, Mr. James?
I'll wait till we move on.
Very good. Is there discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. James?
Thank you. Mr. President, now I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon our written record temporary resolution number 28-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 28-21. Discussion, Mr. James?
Yes, I'd like to just remind everybody that this particular concentrate line that comes from the South Water Plant up to the Lawrence Street wastewater plant is a real problem and is limiting our ability to actually produce the capacity of water that we need to from the south plant. And we're looking at right now the Arcadis to design and manage this particular project, and to the tune of about $79,700. And that's why we've asked for suspension and to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. James. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 28-21.
I was wondering what I was hitting.
Temporary Resolution 28-21 passes 9-0. And we now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with Temporary Resolution 31-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding under the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program for the purchase of one 2022 New Way Mammoth 40-yard front loader garbage truck for use by the Sanitation Department, offered by Mrs. Teener and seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mrs. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading on temporary resolution 31-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading on Temporary Resolution 31-21. Discussion, Ms.
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 31-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 31-21. Discussion, Ms. Teener.
Yes, this is suspending because we're getting to purchase a front loader truck for the sanitation department. This is something that they do. They buy trucks because, well, they use them a lot. So, and Bill's not here tonight. He kind of pieced out. So this was his last day as a city employee. So, Paul, did you want to mention? I can't remember. I didn't write down the amount that we're getting the truck for.
I thought it was about 260 or something,
Okay.
not to exceed.
249. I think.
249.
I'm sorry, I did
not.
not do that. It was, he went out for, I believe, 3 bids, and that was the cheapest, so.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Teener. Is there other discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
No. It's because you wore that shirt today, okay?
I was like, dang it, you're messing me up over here. She's getting her whiteout out.
No.
Because you wore that shirt today.
Still voting no. All right.
I was like, what?
Mrs. Teener,
Yes, because you wore the shirt today. That's why
I knew somebody said no.
that's hilarious.
Is that everybody?
that is everyone.
Temporary Resolution 31-21 passes 8-1. Temporary Resolution 32-21.
A resolution authorizing the city of Lancaster to apply for the Meals on Wheels Older Adult Alternatives of Fairfield County, Inc., 2021 through 2022 grant offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover?
First of three readings, please.
First of three readings on Temporary Resolution 32-21. Temporary Resolution 33-21.
A resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the United States Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration as authorized under the federal transit laws as codified 49 USC Section 5311, financial assistance for other than urbanized areas and funds available from the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program and Ohio Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program 5339, 5339B, OTP2, RTP, and E&D, and any other grants that become available through ODOT, and executing a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation upon each grant application approval. Offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mrs. Downhour.
Mr. Schoonover?
That was fantastic.
I didn't hear it.
By the
What did
way.
you say?
I'm pretty excited that she gets
I
to
didn't
do
catch
it.
that.
Do it three more times. I almost feel bad.
I think it's
but
mean that we make her do it.
That's
To be
the
perfectly honest.
first of three readings.
You did great. First of three readings on Temporary Resolution 33-21. Temporary Resolution 34-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Lateral D Phase 1 Trunk Sewer Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
A bit more succinct on that one.
Very nicely done.
Yes, Mr.
First of
James.
three readings.
First of three readings on Temporary Resolution 34-21. Temporary Resolution 35-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the Park and Recreation Fund 2012, offered by Mrs. Teener and seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Ms. Teener?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading on temporary resolution 3521.
Second.
A motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of Temporary Resolution 35-21. Discussion, Ms. Teener?
Not this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Teener?
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3521.
Second.
We have a motion to pass and gross and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 35-21. Discussion, Ms. Teener?
Yes, I would like to have Mike Tharp from Parks Department come up and explain the 100 trees.
Mr. Tharp?
Again, 100 Trees Please, the project we started for Rising Park in January. 6 weeks later, we have sold 162 trees. Something I forgot to mention in finance, I had a gentleman step up with $50,000 to put towards this project and the Rising Park Shelter project. That money was given to Friends of the Lancaster Park, and it will go towards those two projects. And then I just received word tonight, somebody said, whatever money we raise in this project, she will match it. So right now I raised $32,400, and I'm not done yet, and I'm gonna get a match for that money. So this project will have exceeded more than $100,000. That's just unbelievable, so.
And how long's this been going on, though? It's been,
About 6 weeks right now.
I was gonna say, it hasn't been that long.
Might be into our 7th week, but we're pushing right along.
Very good. And how much is a tree to purchase right now?
So each tree is $200. That covers, the cost of the tree is about a $150, $162, somewhere right in there. We put a plaque on that tree. We give them a T-shirt. And then as we move forward with the Arboretum, every tree will be with its scientific name, its common name, the year it was planted, where it came from, all the pertinent information to turn this into a true full-fledged Arboretum.
That's fantastic. And what's your number right now?
162 right now.
163.
3.
163 right now.
Yeah, you have Melody's check still, right? Well, we'll add another one. I'll do one, so that's 164. I'll challenge those around the table to consider doing
Mayor's
one
probably 165.
as well. Mike, just going around. Yeah, keep getting them. That's fine. Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments tonight?
Came from multiple states too, Mike. You mentioned that in the subcommittee meeting, but
Yeah, the 50,000 came from Florida. We had numerous trees come out of the state of Florida. There are snowbirds that are down there in the winter that
Sure.
will be back home here in a few months, so,
Great.
yep.
Very good. Yes, Ms.
Oh, I'm
Taylor?
sorry. When you go to plant these trees, do you let them know and then people can come out and see the tree get planted?
Yes, there's some people that want to help plant the trees.
Okay.
Lancaster Greenhouse has stepped up in a big way. They'll probably be a part of this project. Of course, the parks will be part of this project. The Lancaster Tree Commission is going to be the namesake on the Arboretum itself. So there's a lot of players involved in this venture. So it's going to be killer.
That's great. Very good. Further discussion? All right, thank you, Mr. Tharp.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 35-21 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 36-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the Parks and Recreation Fund 2012, offered by Mrs. Teener, seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Ms. Teener.
First of 3 readings.
First to 3 readings on Temporary Resolution 36-21. Temporary Resolution 37-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance in the Parks and Recreation Fund 2012 and amend the certificate with the county auditor, offered by Mrs. Teener and seconded by Mrs. Bobbit.
Ms. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading on temporary resolutions 3721.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of Temporary Resolution 37-21. Discussion, Ms. Teener?
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3721.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 37-21. Before I turn it over to Ms. Teener, let me note quickly for those of you who have a copy of this resolution in front of you that prior to the meeting, it was made clear by Mr. Tharp that there was an error in this and that while this suggests that we were adding 2 seasonal positions, in fact, we are removing 2 seasonal positions. The third whereas on your legislation has been stricken from this. So please mark that out on your legislation. The official legislation will not include it. With that, Ms. Teener.
Yes, if Mike could come up to the podium again, I'll have him speak since it is regarding hiring for a position, and maybe you can talk about the pool a little bit too.
Yeah, again, this is taking a single position part-time that we have presently and coupling it with 2 seasonal part-time positions that we would hire each year to help facilitate and run the pools, the outdoor pools, the summer pools. So with that being said, 1 full-time position, this actually saves the parks money. Those 3 positions, as if you combined all 3 of them, would be a total of about $53,240. When we go to 1 position to couple altogether those 3, we end up $43,061. So it's a savings to the park right now, and a big hinge point with that savings is that this particular person does not need health insurance. So that helps us out tremendously with that piece. Moving forward, the parks and the pools going into summer, this is a completely unique year. We will have more regulations and more stipulations and guidelines to follow than we've ever done before. We didn't do these in 2020 because we didn't open the pools. So as we move forward, we want somebody that we can count on, somebody responsible, somebody of an adult mindset. And this person is that person that we can trust, that when we walk away from the pools in the daytime, that it will continue the same structure as far as social distancing and the guidelines set forth by the state by the time we get into June.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Tharp. Anything else, Ms. Teener? Further discussion on the motion to pass? Yes.
I just want to say, having fulfilled that position for summer, this is desperately needed. This will allow some continuity from year to year, allow a person devoted to that position instead of your recreation supervisor running both of those things, which is an impossible task. So I fully support this.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Further discussion? Well, we've said it twice now in the Finance Committee meeting and in this meeting, we're talking about opening the pools. I think that's going to get a lot of people excited this summer. So I've asked Mr. Tharp to be here next council meeting, to provide an update on all the summer activities, including the pools, Friday night bandstand, sports, and other things that are happening throughout our parks. So we'll look forward to that. Anyone else have any comment before we call the question?
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tharp. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 37-21 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 38-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate with the county auditor in the Water Replacement Improvement Fund 6025 and Water Utility Reserve Fund 6027, dispense with competitive bidding, and authorize the issuance of then and now certificates. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Mr. President, I would like now to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution number 38-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 38-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
I'll save it, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Yes, Mr. President, I would now like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon our written record temporary resolution number 38-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 38-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Yes, I think Superintendent Nixon pretty well covered this entire thing. To get at least one more of our filter beds in the Memorial Drive Water Treatment Facility back in place to help us with our water capacity issues.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 38-21 passes 9-0. Are there any further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the second reading of temporary ordinance 4-21.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code, Title III, Zoning and Property Restrictions, Chapter 1123, General Provisions, Chapter 1129, Residential Districts, Chapter 1133, Commercial Districts, Chapter 1151, Off-Street Parking and Off-Street Loading, and Chapter 1161, Definitions of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mr. Matlin and seconded by Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. Matlin.
Second of three readings.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 4-21, temporary ordinance 5-21.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code, Title III, Zoning and Property Restrictions, Chapter 1135, Industrial Districts, Chapter 1151, Off-Street Parking and Off-Street Loading, and Chapter 1161, Definitions of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mr. Matlin and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. Matlin.
Again, second of three readings.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 5-21. I'll quickly note that we do have a public hearing set for March 8th at 6:30 PM right here in council chambers. Temporary ordinance 6-21.
An ordinance to repeal Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 1. I'm sorry, thought I was reading the wrong one. Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 5, Chapter 133, Fire Department, Section 133.08, Pickup of Contributions and Disability and Pension Fund, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mrs. Downhour, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 6-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 6-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
No, I'll save it, thank you.
Sure. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 6-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 6-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour.
Yes, thank you. This ordinance is going to modify section, it's going to actually remove section 133.08 because it is outdated and the benefit was previously terminated for all city employees as a cost-cutting measure.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 6-21 passes 9-0. Temporary ordinance 7-21.
An ordinance to repeal Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 5, Chapter 131, Police Department, Section 131.01, Fee for Copies of Records, Section 131.02, Gasoline Allowance for Police Chief, and Section 131.01, Pickup of Contribution to Disability and Pension Fund, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mrs. Downhour and seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Ms. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 7-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 7-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour.
No, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 7-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 7-21. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, this again is a cleanup piece. It is going to correct 131.01. It's gonna remove that as it's an outdated, section. And it also includes sections 131.02 and 131.03, which are negotiated benefits that are no longer offered.
Thank you, Ms. Downhour. Further discussion on the motion to pass.
I got discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr.
I want to ask the
McDaniel.
director,
Safety director, if I can go back and collect that 40-gallon allotment for
15 and 16.
No.
No.
Apparently not.
No, not now.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 7-21 passes 9-0. We're going to have first reading on temporary ordinance 8-21.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 9, Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Title 5, Other Public Services, Chapter 937, Waste Removal of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mrs. Teener, seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Mrs. Teener.
First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary ordinance 8-21. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we have no tabled legislation to consider tonight. Is there any unfinished business that anyone would like to discuss? I saw Ms. Downhour first, and then we'll go to Ms. Teener. Ms. Downhour.
I just wanted to clarify, as was read in the beginning part of the meeting, my formal resignation has been tendered, and I will be here until March 26th. My last council meeting will officially be March 22nd.
Well, thank you very much for that update, and we appreciate again your service. Ms. Teener.
I was just updating on the group of people about the, raising the, pay of the employees for the,
Well, I wouldn't characterize it like that. They're reviewing the salary of
oh,
the
well, you
employees.
know. No, well, it needs to be. raised. It
Well,
should've been
we'll
done
see what
last
the
year.
committee comes back and says. We have begun the work, and that committee, along with Ms. Bobbitt and Ms. Nyheiser and myself, are currently working. Our meeting to present recommendations is the second week of March, and then we will bring those recommendations, once they're presented to the group, to this body for your action. So I'm looking at middle of March that we'll have recommendations for you.
Okay.
Further unfinished business this evening. Is there any new business tonight? I'll just mention very briefly, and I know that you likely all saw this in the news, but former Councilman Bruce McAtee passed away here recently. Mr. McAtee served Lancaster as a 3rd Ward Council rep from December 1st of 2010 through December 31st of 2011. He was also a tri-chair on the successful passage of the Street Levy Committee in 2013 with Bob Lovell and Rosemary Hajost. In addition to that, he was a significant member of the community and a community leader, spending more than 30 years with the YMCA, working also with organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and many other throughout the community. So our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to former Councilman McAtee's family as they cope with their loss. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
A reminder that the State of the City video will be released at 8 o'clock on the morning of the 25th. So I'm sure all of you will be waiting in front of your TV to view that. I haven't seen it yet, but hope to see it here sometime before it's released. But a lot of great information about the city, featuring a number of city department heads. So we're looking forward to seeing it.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Further new business this evening? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our regularly scheduled meetings.
Upcoming meeting of council, March 8th, 6:30 PM. During that meeting, there will be a public hearing on temporary ordinance 5-21. The meeting following is March 22nd at 6:30 PM. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Safety, March 5th at 7:30 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, March 8th, here at 6 PM in Council Chambers. Water Pollution, March 10th at 8 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Economic Development, March 18th at 7:30 AM, City Hall 1897 Conference Room. IT Telecom, March 19th at 7:45 AM at City Hall 1897 Conference Room. And finally, Finance, March 22nd at 6 PM here in Council Chambers.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any bills this evening?
There are two, $47.40 for publication of legislation and $289.50 for publication of the notice of public hearing, totaling $336.96 on our PNC card payable to MNCO.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pay the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a need for an executive session this evening? If not, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion to adjourn.
Second?
A motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We achieved an extraordinary amount of work in just an hour and 10 minutes because we started at 6:45 tonight. So thank you all very much for your diligent work, and please remember to sign your legislation. We are adjourned. Have a great evening.